the universe is on acid? Well, something like that. Because there is obviously some wild creation going on, some incredible dream of most gigantic proportions. And that's only in one ocean, on one planet. And then on land, the millions of insects, different forms of different plants, and then on the level that you cannot see, the microorganisms. And, it's just unbelievable. And that's only one tiny planet out of trillions, the vastness of the universe. And everywhere there's the game of form. What a gigantic dream. But built into that dream, because what is in each human is a microcosmic version of the entire universe. So the awakening of humans is also the awakening of the universe, because you cannot separate the human from the entire universe. They need each other. They are totally one. There would not even be a universe without the perceiving consciousness. It's the one consciousness that comes through humans creates the universe as perceived by humans. Other forms perceive a different universe. It's all the same, and yet it's different. The one consciousness dreaming innumerable dreams. Impossible to understand. But what we see when we look at humans, they are immersed in a kind of dream also. When you're totally identified with your reactions, and you play out the drama of your life in relationships, at work, and you go, and you get elated. Oh, it's great, I made it. And a few months later, you go down, you lost it again. Oh, it's a stage. All the world's a stage. Shakespeare saw that, and all men and women are merely players. And this is the stuff that dreams are made on. So humans can wake up out of that dreamlike existence that they are otherwise immersed in, where there is no sense of who they are apart from the script that they act out, the inner script. Complete identification. And then there's the possibility of awakening, becoming aware of that which underlies the script, without which there would be no script, there would be nothing. There's a vast realm of still aware presence from where you can see the dream world without being immersed in it. The body is still in it, but there is a seeing. You can see your own drama. You can see yourself playing out your own script. And gradually there's the awakening is, something arises that is not part of the play of form, but that can see the play of form. And if that can arise in you, it means it is a universal movement. So through you, the universe not only wants to experience this gigantic dream, there's something else built into the dream, and that is the need of the universe to awaken out of the dream. It loves that even more than the dream. And that is, so what we cannot even begin to conceive of the magnitude of what looks only like some people in a room sitting, listening, speaking, that this is part of a much larger movement that's connected to even the most distant galaxy, is part of something that is happening in the universe. It is an event created by the one life that is the universe. So you think on a personal level it's good to sit here because your life becomes lighter, free. So you feel a relief on a personal level, suffering, less and less suffering, clarity arising, stillness arising, a sense of connectedness, of beingness, a deeper sense of I. But that is all a huge event of cosmic proportions. So the awakening is the awakening of the totality through this form. That is the purpose of your life, to be that. So you align yourself with the larger purpose. The secondary purpose is whatever you do in your life, and you can bring the opening into anything that you do, almost anything. If you can't, you leave it. Some things have to be left, and other things are fine. It happens wherever you are. So this is what we temporarily call stillness in you, becoming aware that that dimension is already there. Coming to the end of identification with thinking and realizing that you are more fully yourself when you do not think, without trying not to think. There are many here who already experience the state of being free of thinking without even knowing it. You may be walking and looking at a tree and seeing the magnificence of that spectacle of the dying leaves in all their beauty. And you're perceiving that in and through stillness. And perhaps a minute later you might say something to a person next to you and say, "Isn't that wonderful?" And you may not realize that for a minute or 10 seconds or 5 seconds you have looked at that, and there was a deep sense of response, of oneness or even with it, but no interpretation. And then you notice something strange. Whenever you look at something for the first time, if you're very alert, you will notice that. When you glance at something for the first time, whatever it is, your head shifts, your vision, your field of vision shifts, it goes, and it is here. There's a lot of nature around here. It may be a tree, a flower, the sky, or it may be something man-made, whatever it is. But nature, here there's a lot of nature around here. It may be a tree, a flower, the sky, or it may be something man-made, whatever it is. But nature particularly is helpful in this practice at first. You notice the first moment of looking at something, there's always a space of no thought. It may be 1 second. It may be 2 seconds. Now, most human beings are not aware of that, and with some human beings, the space of no thought is so brief that they can't capture it, because immediately thought comes in after half a second. But there was half a second. There's always a space before thought can come in. There is a looking, a seeing. And with you, that space will now become larger, and in many of you, it is already quite spacious. In other words, the spaciousness around your sense perceptions. So notice that it is already there, but as you become aware of it, the spaciousness grows around your sense perceptions. So, and now comes, this is a magnificent thing, it's a great mystery that in past ages people had to spend 25 years in a monastery to be told this. The master would say, okay, you work with me for 20 years and then ask me again that question. But now things are speeding up, we haven't got that much time. In a good sense, on the planet, we are running out of time, and that's wonderful. It's shrinking. So when you see something, there's a sense perception. Can you be aware both of what arises in your sense perception, what you're looking at, or it may be listening? And can you be aware of the awareness, which is the stillness, in which that sense perception happens? And that stillness, that awareness is, one could say, the space around it. So there is a spacious field and there's a sense perception, and you are not interpreting what you see for a while. There's no need. There's a deep knowing, but there's no interpretation. There's not conceptual knowing. Not that you've lost your ability to have concepts, but when you need them, they'll be there. Words, concepts, thoughts. But you are no longer compulsively trapped in concepts. You are exiting a conceptualized reality. Oh, that is the awakening. You are stepping out of inhabiting a totally conceptualized universe, which is mental conditioning. Everything is called something, interpreted, labeled, named. And so a great freedom arises of perceiving through the unconditioned consciousness. And this is, you are here to experience that and to see that it is already, that movement is already happening in you, that freeing yourself from compulsive conceptualization is already happening. And it is happening when you look at a tree or a flower or another human being and it enters your field of vision, and in that moment there's pure perception and no labeling it in any way. Just a field of stillness, and it may be that it's only there for a few seconds, but see if you can capture that space. And that's not perhaps a very good way of saying it, because you cannot capture stillness. It's see if you can be attentive and see if you can notice that. And that noticing is vital, because as you notice the stillness in which your perception happens, the space or the stillness expands. So as you perceive things, you are now inhabiting two dimensions. One is the dimension of form, which is all around you, continuously fluctuating. And they may be outer forms or they may be inner forms, as emotions, thoughts. And the other dimension is the dimension of the formless, consciousness, pure awareness. The other is the dimension of the object consciousness, things. So you inhabit the dimension of the manifested without being lost in it. Because you also dwell in the unmanifested. You dwell in the realm of stillness. And even if at first the spaces of stillness don't last for very long, it's good enough. 3 seconds of looking at a flower with no thought is good enough. And as you become aware of there's not only the flower, I'm naming it now, but the awareness is not the naming. You become aware of the flower, and you become aware of the field of awareness or the stillness. And this looks like a dualistic thing, but it isn't. It only becomes dualistic when we speak about it. When you speak about becoming aware of awareness, it looks like two things. Aware of awareness. But that's only because we are using language which has a subject and an object in a sentence. What is really happening is self-awareness. You're becoming aware. Awareness is becoming aware of itself. So that is the dimension, and it's hard to talk about that. And in a way, the author of the Tao Te Ching is right when he says at the beginning of this book of wisdom, the Tao Te Ching, if you can speak about it, that's not it. So it's not, the words have to be seen as for what they are, just pointers. So this is a beautiful practice here. Walk around wherever you are, sit, stand, lie, walk. Be aware of yourself as the aware presence, as the stillness in which everything is seen and heard. And so you become like a little child. It's not for nothing that Jesus said, you must become as little children if you want to enter the kingdom of heaven. Now what he is pointing to, and he's not saying exactly that, it's always just an approximation. It does not mean you return to that state, because there's only that quality that a little child has in whom the conceptual reality has not yet developed. And when that little child in whom the accumulation of words and concepts in the mind has not happened yet, that little child looks at the universe, and you sometimes can see it when you see a 1-year-old, 1.5, before language takes possession of their minds. The way they look is thoughtless awareness. And then they smile at you. There's the pure joy of being. And you can see that that which shines through is magnificent. And then gradually the veil descends, because the child is programmed to ask, the mind of the child is programmed to ask, Daddy, what's that? And then Daddy says, that's a tree. And then the mind says, tree, that's tree. Next time the child sees a tree, that complete openness is no longer quite as open, because then the child looks at the tree and then the mind says, oh, tree! And 2 years, 3 years later, the mind is already possessed with concepts. So when Jesus says that, it's pointing, as little children, you walk around in that state of openness, of non-labeling, the state of original innocence, which replaces the dysfunction, the collective dysfunction of the human mind that we could call original sin, if we go beyond the habitual interpretations of sin. There's no doubt that there's a dysfunction in humanity. Look at human history. That's why they talk of original sin. It means sin means missing the target. If you, the original Greek word translated means missing the target. That's what sin means in the original. And in other words, you miss the point of your whole existence. And if you miss the point of your whole existence, you suffer. And that eventually works too. It wakes you up eventually. So it seems insignificant at first to the human mind to say you can look at something and notice whenever you first look at something that there's a moment of spacious presence before the mind comes in and calls it something. And if that can be sustained, not through effort, not through wanting, not through some kind of act of willpower, but if that can be sustained simply by noticing that space of aware presence when it arises. And then even as a human being comes into your field of vision, walks in through the door, appears in front of you, you look, and there's a moment of non-labeling. Let's say it's somebody you have never met before comes, and you look, and there's not a single thought in your head for perhaps 5 seconds. But if you notice that in the first moment there's just there's a field of awareness in which the perception happens before the labeling comes in, you may find that it expands, and you could still be in the state of just looking a minute later. And you can even talk, and every time a sentence has come to an end, you re-enter the state of spacious awareness. A word has been uttered, and you're back in space. And then your words have a different quality too, because now they come out of that dimension. They have an aliveness. They will touch the other human being. What you say has the essence of that freshness of being. Not the old stuff that otherwise is your mind. You're telling them, a minute later after meeting a person, you tell them the old story of me. So what do you do for a living? Well, blah, 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 blah. You can talk about that also, and then step back, knowing that's not who you are. So who are you? You are the stillness. That's where your true sense of I am comes from. Of beingness. So this is the opportunity as you sit here to be in that state. You don't really need to think as you sit here. I certainly don't think as I speak. The words are heard as they come out of the mouth. I hear them. As you do. So there's nobody teaching anybody. Do I know more than you? No, of course not. Probably less than most of you. What I know is the realm of stillness. And that's not anybody's personal achievement, because everybody has that as their essence. So what I know is your essence. That's why it's nice to sit with me, because otherwise, why would anybody come? What you enjoy most is to be with yourself, but in the true sense, not the mind-made self, the deepest self. Now, ultimately, you don't have to go anywhere. This is just a temporary stage in the evolution of humanity where you have to travel somewhere to be with yourself. Now, some of you have traveled to India, and perhaps you already know you don't have to go to India, and so Omega is a little closer. And the next stage is you don't have to go to Omega. Oh, sorry. Oh. You may go for the enjoyment. I sometimes enjoy listening to spiritual teachers who may be using different words, and yet the truth is there, and it's a wonderful, deep joy in hearing it in a slightly different form. When you meet a human being and don't label them, or if that is not yet possible, at least not for more than a few seconds,